Hi, my name is Tina Stasiak, and my report is on Allport and Cattell's trait theories of personality. So Gordon Allport was an American personality theorist, and he believed personality was based more on personal traits and motivation than the past. And Raymond Cattell sought to formulate accurate predictions of personality based on scientific criteria. So trait theory definitions. Personality is defined as Schultz and Schultz in 2017 as everything about you that makes you what you are, a unique individual who's different in large and small ways from everybody else. And a trait is a tendency to reaction which, when measured with reliability, demonstrates an independence of other variables. And that's Allport in 1927. Traits are descriptive analyses of factors of personality that are stable and consistent. So the trait theory of personality seeks to understand personality based on the delineation and definition of traits. So I reviewed two articles. The first one was by Gordon Allport, and it's The Concepts of Trait and Personality. So he worked through the history of the development of his trait theory of personality. He sought to rescue the term trait from the confusion of the past. He stated that traits become predictable to the extent that identities in stimulus situations are predicted. He delineated the existence of a hierarchy of traits and differentiated traits from reflexes and habits as defined by Gestalt psychology. And his motivation was to defend his theory and to show the development of his trait theory of personality. So Allport's conclusions in the article: the recognition of traits as the unit of personality, the omission of a probable hierarchy of traits, an approach to the problem of generalization of traits, the omission of both major synthesis in personality as well as minor synthesis and dissociated acts. So there's major things, traits, and minor traits. The tentative admission of subjective values as core of such synthesis, but exclusion of objective evaluation or character judgments from purely psychological method. So the other article I reviewed was Personality Structure and Measurements, the Contributions of Raymond Cattell by Ravel. So he reviewed Cattell's 1946 article in the British Journal of Psychology. He discussed Cattell's definitions of surface and source traits, which states that surface traits were seen as clusters of observed correlations, while source traits were equated with factors derived from factor analysis thought to be causes of observed correlation. He delineated Cattell's division of traits into ability, dynamic, and temperamental traits. Ability traits are based on performance, dynamic based on response to reward or punishment. Temperamental traits are not defined by ability or response to stimuli, so they're kind of leftover traits. The article was written by William Ravel and offers praise of Raymond Cattell's contribution and the process through which Cattell defined and grouped traits in his personality theory. So Ravel's conclusions. Ravel discussed Cattell's delineation of personality traits in trait theory and stated Cattell's goal was to apply quantitative methods to personality in order to derive psychological equivalent of the periodic table. Cattell initially, in his 1946 article, formulated personality traits into various subsets. This eventually led to Cattell's final formation of 16 distinct personality traits that are measured by scale and offered in a 16 personality factor questionnaire. Allport's trait theory. In Allport's trait theory is premised on the belief that our personality traits determine our behaviors. Schultz and Schultz in 2017 show that Allport believed that traits determine or cause behavior. They do not arise only in response to certain stimuli. They motivate us to seek appropriate stimuli and interact with the environment to produce behaviors. So Allport's classification of personality traits. Cardinal traits, usually few in number, are defining characteristics of a person. He is a happy person. She's an extremely devoted friend. Central traits, typically 5 to 10, best describe our behavior. He has a great sense of humor. She's sympathetic. Secondary traits may include minor preferences. He likes to watch comedy shows. She frequently spends time with friends. Cattell's trait theory offers 16 factors in a self-reporting test. These traits are emotional engagement, dominance, liveliness, rule awareness, socially secure sensitivity, vigilance, abstractness, openness, uncertainty, openness to change, independence, perfectionism, tension, reasoning ability, and emotional stability. And I've included a link to his personality test. Cattell's definition of the classification of traits. So we have common traits that are present in various degrees, like intelligence or extroversion. Unique traits, which define our individual preferences. Ability traits that define our skills. Temperament traits, which is our emotional reactivity. Dynamic traits, traits determined by underlying motivation, like religion. Surface traits, elements of source traits, and may be situational. Source traits, these are the Cattell's major 16 measures of personality. And then he has constitutional traits, which are biologically related traits, and environmental mold traits, traits that derive from outside influences on our personality. So a comparison of Allport and Cattell's trait theories. Cattell followed Allport and others in defining personality by traits that the individual displayed. Cattell's classifications went further than Allport's original 4,000 traits and 3 classifications of traits by further clustering traits by their common characteristics. Cattell sought to develop a scientific measurement of traits through factor analysis, which involves assessing the relationship between each possible pair of measurements taken from a group of subjects to determine common factors. That's Schultz and Schultz in 2017. Cattell's factor analysis would have allowed correlation of personality tests to determine correlation and therefore efficacy. And finally, Allport's research and theory and Cattell's further research and definition allow for personalities to be uniquely characterized by professionals and individuals. This allowed God's children to follow Augustine's prayer, "Grant, Lord, that I may know myself, that I may know thee." Thank you.